everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you don't know me, my name is Adrian and I am a nursing student at Chamberlain University. My channel is about nursing school and my experience, my advice, vlogs and things like that. Today in this video, I'm going to be talking about how to maximize your community college experience. For me, I went to community college here in Houston. I went to Lone Star College. I went there from literally the time I graduated high school, and I was there for like 2 years, 2.5, like maybe 3 years, I think. I've lost track of time. I don't know. I need to really count. I would say I spent like 3 years there. To start off first, community college is great. Community college is like the best thing I could have ever done. For me personally, fun fact about me, I went to a private high school from sophomore year to senior year, and the high school that I went to really pushed this idea that, as a high school student, you had to reach to the stars in terms of colleges and universities. So I felt a little bit insecure about, the fact that I knew that I was going to go to community college. But now that I've done it, it's like I've come out on top and it doesn't fucking matter. Like, it really doesn't. So I'm very glad that I went to community college. It saves money, and the professors that I had at community college were some of the best. They were so passionate and so well educated, and I learned so many things. And they were all very, very helpful. So don't ever feel bad about going to community college. Don't ever feel insecure. You are still that bitch. Like, you are still on top. So yeah, don't let anybody ever make you feel bad for going to community college. Now, the first, and I would probably say, I'm not going to say that my tips or my advice are in order from most important to least important. These are just things that are coming off the top of my head. These are things that my third eye is telling me, whatever. Just kidding, whatever. So the most important thing, I would say, one of the most important things is really develop a relationship with your professor. Really get to know them. You want them to be able to see you and know who you are, talk to them, tell them about your goals, what you want to do, where you want to go, all of that. I think really part of the reason why community college is so great are the class sizes. For me, my community college, every class had like 30 something students. So our professors knew us. They knew us by name. They would recognize me wherever. So they were all really, really great. I literally had the experience when I was in nursing. Well, when I was taking anatomy, I had a professor who was pretty, I wouldn't say he was strict, but he did his job. He really didn't beat around the bush. He was a very straightforward professor. I mean, it's like, if you pass a test, you pass. If you failed, you failed. It was like that. He was nice, and when I would see him in the hallway, like, I would talk to him, I would, say, how are you? How's it going? And over time, he kind of got to know me. He would recognize me. And also in community college, particularly for me, my community college, the science classes were pretty big, actually. Now that I remember, looking back, I would say that our science courses, like anatomy and things like that, I would say they had probably more than 30 students. And of course, there were several courses, so you can imagine, like, the total number of students he would have is pretty large. But anyways, we were starting to kind of get to know each other, and he knew that, of course, I was going into nursing. He knew that, of course, nursing requires you to have good grades in general. And I remember, I think my final grade was approaching a B, which I was okay with. And I think I almost made a C in the class, but because he knew me and I took the time to really like connect with him and get to know him, at the end of the course, he boosted my grade for me without me even asking. I was like, oh crap, I'm probably gonna have to take the course again. I was already beating myself up. But then I realized he gave me some extra little points, just those, a few extra, just so I can get that B. So I ended up passing anatomy with the B. I aced my final exam. I did pretty well on some other exams. I actually remember now, my first exam I did really bad on. But it was my first exam in my first anatomy course, my first real science course. So I think he understood that I was new. So he boosted my grade a little bit for me. And I'm so grateful because I didn't have to retake anatomy. If I would have gotten a C, I would have had to retake it. So really connect with your professors, really get to know them, send them an email before class start, introduce yourself. That's something that I'm doing now in nursing school. Also connecting with your professors, that also means office hours. Like, you need to swallow your pride and go to office hours. You don't know everything, and that's okay. They're there to help you. They can, and that's probably the best thing that I've ever done, is go to office hours. I've mentioned this in my last video. Those of you who have been inquiring about, writing a personal statement or a passion statement, my English professor literally took the time to help me write my passion statement for nursing school. And it's a really, really good, well-written paper. And it's all thanks to his help. And it was all thanks to me going to his office hours regularly when I took his course. So this was an English course, and my experience was that we, of course, had papers to write. So I would write my paper, my draft, and before it was due, I would say, hey professor, can I see you? Is it okay if I come to your office hours so we can kind of go over this paper and give me your feedback? And he would say, sure, come on in. Come to my office hours before class and I can help you. So that's what I would do. I would go to school extra early before my class, and I would meet with him, and he would print out my paper for me, unless I had already printed it out. And he would go through my paper, giving me feedback, really teaching me and really telling me what is good, what's bad, whatever. And I literally, in that English class, I went to his office hours, I think, like pretty much every single time we had a paper. And he would go over my paper and he would tell me what I needed to do, what I needed to change. I would change them up and I would submit my papers on the deadline, and I would literally get 100s on my essays. Yeah, so I ended up getting like 3 100s on like 3 different essays that I wrote, and it was all because I went to him to, ask for help. And he helped me out so much, and he was such a great professor, so kind. I ended up, of course, passing the class with an A. Even afterwards, after I took his course, I would still go to see him during his office hours when he was available. And I was like, hey, professor, how's it going? How are you? And I would always chat with him. He traveled a lot, so he would always talk about his travels and where he went to and what he did. And finally, of course, he knew that I was going into nursing. So finally I told him, I said, hey professor, if it's okay with you, I would like if you could help me write my personal statement essay. And he was like, sure, absolutely. He was like, if I'm here in my office, if you see me here in my office, just come on in and, I'll help you with your paper. And so that's literally what ended up happening. So over the course of like a year, I wouldn't say a year, but over the course of several months, I would, go see him in his office after class, my other courses that I was taking, and He would help me with my paper. We would go over the requirements for a personal statement, and I would write, and he would print out my paper, or unless I already had it printed out, and he would go through and he would give me feedback and really help me with my paper. So I ended up with a really, really well-written personal statement essay. So that's another huge piece of advice. For those of you who are in pre-nursing, you're in pre-nursing or whatever, if you are taking English, ask your professors for help. They might be able to help you. You just have to ask. Even if it's not your professor, my community college had a writing center, so it was literally like a tutoring for writing papers and things like that. You could probably go to them as well. They will probably be able to help you. Community college, there are resources available to you, and it is highly recommended that you use them. Now, I had really, really positive experiences with my professors, and I know not everybody's experience is going to be positive, but that's really the biggest piece of advice. Your professors are your number one resource, and it's very important to consider them. And at community college, I just feel like at community college, the professors are just amazing and incredible, and they're very passionate, and they're willing to help you. They want you to succeed. So that leads me to my next piece of advice. Like I just said, utilize your resources. When I was taking anatomy, chemistry, microbiology, my community college had a science, I forgot what it was called, but it's basically like tutoring for science courses. I forgot what it was called. I can't think of it. But for those of you who have gone to Lone Star College, you know what I'm talking about. You would go, you would sign in, and the people in there were tutors. A lot of them had taken, pretty much all the science courses, and so I would go in there often with my friends, and we would go and we would study and we would review everything. We would ask questions. The tables that we had that we could sit on were, I think, if I remember this correctly, they were, I don't know what it's called, but it's like, the surface where when you write in markers, like dry erase markers, you could literally write on the tables and erase them, and that's how you would study. And then there were also like TV screens that you can attach your computer to, and you can look at PowerPoints and things like that. So utilize your resources. Whatever community college you're going to, utilize your resources. It's so important that you do, because often the funding that those specific resources get comes from you going to them. If you pay your tuition and you sign in to a particular resource like a science or whatever, that lets the school know that they can continue to fund that specific resource for the school. So it's very important that you do. Now, the next piece of advice that I have is, community college oftentimes, I think a stereotype or a myth that exists about community college is that it's difficult to make friends. For me, it was not difficult at all. So for me, most of the time, I would say I'm a pretty shy person. I'm kind of an introvert. Well, I am an introvert. But every time I would have a class, I would always make the effort to introduce myself to the person sitting next to me, either side, and I would start talking to them. And I would say, hey, and I would ask them like, hey, can you please give me your contact so I can get in touch with you so we can help each other if we need to. And through that, I made plenty of friends. In total, I would say, if I were to count, so I would say in total, I made like 6 pretty good friends. Probably more, actually maybe 7. Probably like 6 or 7 pretty good friends at community college. And this is coming from, you know, hearing about like, oh, it's hard to make friends at community college. It's really not. Like, it's not hard to be a decent person and just be nice to the people around you. You might find that the person sitting next to you has a lot in common with you, and you can build a friendship. Now, the reason why this is a good piece of advice is, you know, the people around you can help you. There were people around me who were, of course, also nursing majors, and they had their own pieces of advice and tips and resources that they knew of, and we would help each other. And the great benefit is that we would help each other. We would, you know, study together, do studying groups. Study groups is probably the thing that really helped the most. Getting into study groups. Literally at my campus in community college, we had the ability to rent out study rooms and study in them, and we would literally do that before exams, and that helped a lot. We would create Quizlets for each other. We would send them to each other. So that's probably the thing that really helped me the most, was really making friends with people who can help you. I mean, that was the greatest thing ever. I couldn't have done it without the people that I met. So that's a really strong piece of advice. Be friendly with the people around you. I know that it's kind of hard when you're shy, but that's just a hurdle that you have to jump, and just do it. Be brave, you know, be courageous. You know, for me, there were times where I would introduce myself to the person next to me and we would help each other during the course, and then that's it. You know, the relationship kind of ended there. It didn't go any further than that. And then there were some people where, like I said, we would have a lot in common and we would help each other during the course, and then afterwards I'd be like, hey, what are you doing? Like, let's go out. Like, let's go get some drinks, let's go to the club, whatever. What are you doing this weekend? And, you know, we would hang out and have fun. And so, like I said, I made some pretty good friends through school. You know, you don't have to be at a university living in dorms and, you know, stuff like that to make friends. Like, you really don't. So that's really it for this video. I really don't have anything else. If I have more, I will leave it in the comments. If you guys have any questions, please ask. I'm, you know, very, very happy to help. You can always follow me on Instagram. This is something that I want to mention. You know, my journey through community college, you can find it on my Instagram. So follow me on Instagram. Look at my highlight. There's a highlight on my Instagram page that shows my pre-nursing journey. I saved, you know, so many of my stories and I put it into that highlight, so you guys can go through and, you know, see my journey through pre-nursing. And then there's another highlight for nursing school that I just made as well. So follow me on Instagram. Feel free to send me an email if you have any questions. Feel free to leave comments if you have any questions. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys next time.